So last class we talked about the famous and very important, very unethical study done by Harry Harlow, in which they raised the baby monkeys with either no mother at all or a wire mother and a cloth mother, to see which had the bigger impact on their level of attachment, nourishment or body contact, and which one did they find had the larger impact on attachment? Body contact. The mother, the cloth mother that gave it comfort rather than food. So not only have they found that body contact body contact and touch play a really big role in the contact, comfort, and building that attachment. Um, they have also found one of the other really big factors for attachment at a young age is familiarity, right? Meaning how familiar the child is with their caregiver. Do they know them? And one of the people who did a lot of research on this with animals is a guy named Konrad Lorenz. Konrad Lorenz was an Austrian zoologist who was raised ducks. And what he noticed was that other animals, humans don't do this, or ours is not quite as rigid. But we talked last time about these critical periods, these periods in which something needs to happen, right, for it to, like, the window for a developmental milestone to occur. And one of the things that they have found is that other animals, other than humans, will attach to the first thing that they see after they are born. What is called imprinting. This is not the imprinting from what's the movie? What's that movie or the book? Has with the Twilight, yeah. Okay, it's not the same as imprinting from Twilight, but animals attach to the first thing that they see or the first thing that they see. So, like, for instance, goslings have a critical period for imprinting of about 18 hours. So they have to see and attach to their caregiver by about 18 hours after birth, or they're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to form that attachment after that. Humans don't do this. If we did, then we'd have like a bunch of babies that were like attached to like the gynecologist that delivered them. Okay, but humans have rather than the critical period, they have the sensitive period where they need to build that familiarity over a period. They can build it over a period of a couple of months or so, first couple months of birth. So really all you need to know about this is that familiarity plays a role, and animals other than humans imprint, so they attach to the first thing that they see. Here's a quick little video. There's also a theory called attachment theory that says that, like, infants attaching to a caregiver is innate. It just happens like automatically. So here's a little video of Lorenz and his geese or ducks or whatever they are. Um, there's no words in it. It's just kind of video of him with the ducks, and with music over it. So you can even tell right there at the end that like even after the geese left the nest, they recognized Lawrence because you don't want to try to do that to a random goose, right? Geese are not nice animals. And so you could tell, but you could tell that it's kind of like, has anybody ever seen the video? It's on YouTube of the of Christian the lion. It, look it up. It's kind of a sweet video, but like back in like the 70s, there was a big trend. Like people wanted to own exotic animals. And so like you could buy like a lion cub, like places, and these two guys bought a lion cub and they realized after a bit, like, oh shit, this lion is turning into a big lion, and we probably can't have it in like an apartment in Chicago. And so they ended up letting it out into the wild, and they went back to see it like a year later, and the lion recognized them and like came up to them like it was a dog seeing their owner after a while. So um, that is that level of attachment. All right, so following Harlow's research, okay, psychologists really got interested in, you know, what are the factors behind attachment, and then how could we identify different types of attachment that children have to their parents and to their caregiver. And so one of these psychologists that wanted to study this is a woman named Mary Ainsworth. Um, and Ainsworth wanted to see if she could figure out how to recreate an attachment scenario, a scenario in which they could identify how strong the attachment between baby and mother is, in a lab setting. And so what she came up with was a test that she called the strange situation. And I'm going to explain it to you. Then we're going to watch a video of it so you can see it. And then we'll go through the different types of attachment. But the strange situation test was basically what she did was she had the mother and the baby in an unfamiliar room with toys in it. And first off, they wanted to see how does the baby act in the room when the mother is present? Does the baby explore or do they not explore? And then how does the baby react when a stranger comes into the room? How does the baby react when the mother leaves the room? And then how does the baby react? Most importantly, how does the baby react when the mother comes back? All right. And from all these different factors, they were able to to identify two different, actually three, but it's two, and one of them has two subcategories, two different types of attachment. But before we go over these, I'll show you a video of the strange situation. All right, so you can see there how so that's how the test was devised. You had the video on the loudest volume. Good. I guess the crying was loud. Um, and so what you saw in that video was what they can assume is what is called secure attachment, which is about 60% of babies. And so what they found with the strange situation test is when they are in the strange situation, they will explore when the mother is present and become very distressed when she leaves. Because you saw that with that baby. She lost it as soon as the mother walked out of the room. And on the second time, she started to cry even before the mother did because she knew what was coming. But then, as I said, what was the most important was how the baby reacted when the mother came back, the reunion. And you saw that the baby was easily comforted when the mother came back. All right, that's what they see with a secure attachment. Because what they have hypothesized from this is with a secure attachment, the baby has learned to trust that the caregiver will return. So the baby cries, but as soon as she comes back, she's like, all right, I'm fine now. I knew they were going to come back. All right. And this aspect of trust seems to be one of the most important factors. Um, with secure attachment, they found that these mothers tend to be the most responsive to the baby and the most sensitive to the baby's needs, which is why the baby can trust them. On the other hand, there is what is called insecure. And with insecure, there are two different types of insecure. I don't think that you need to be able to differentiate between the two. What they could have is like insecure anxious as an option on a question, but not insecure avoidant. Like I don't think they would have both of them together. They could, but they probably wouldn't. The book doesn't really even distinguish between them. So with insecure attachment, they found that the babies won't necessarily explore, right? And with insecure anxious, right, the baby might cling to the mother the whole time, like doesn't even want to be put down. With insecure avoidant, the baby doesn't explore, but also doesn't really do anything. They just kind of sit there and they don't really care about the mother. Um, with insecure anxious, they found that they would become very distressed when the mother left. And with insecure avoidant, they were indifferent when she left. They didn't care. And then their behavior would be the same when the mother came back. So with the secure attachment, the baby was easily comforted. With insecure anxious, the babies continued to cry when the mother returned. And with insecure avoidant, the baby still didn't give a shit when the mother came back. Okay. They just didn't. They oftentimes would, when the mother would try to pick them up, they would like pull away from them. They found that these are mothers that are unresponsive and often ignore the child, right? And so the baby distrusts them, mistrusts. All right. Are there any questions there about the two types of attachment? So what they have found is that having these types of attachment at a young age correlates with how you are in relationships later on in life. So this is one of these things where like stuff that happens to you as a baby, now it's correlation, it's not causation. Okay, correlation does not necessarily indicate causation, but stuff that happens as a baby and how your parents handle you as a baby can have a big impact on you as an adult. So, if, not surprisingly, people who have secure attachment as a baby tend to be more comfortable in relationships because they have what? What's one of the biggest aspects of a healthy relationship? Trust. Yep. Okay. All right. They have trust. And so they are comfortable in the relationship. They accept other people's faults in relationships. They've also found that they adjust better to new situations. So, like having a secure attachment as a baby could influence how well you adjust to like going to college because they know that even though they're away from their caregiver, they're still there for them. And they also tend to be more successful socially and academically. And hold on one second, I gotta edit one thing. Oh, am I lagging to you guys at all? No? Okay. My computer's going really slow. All right, here we go. So they found that people who have secure attachment as a baby tend to also be more secure in relationships, and it can be romantic relationships, but also friendships. All right, they more easily make friends and they have healthy friendships. Insecure, though, obviously, we can see different things. Um, People with insecure, anxious, what they have found is that in relationships, meaning in friendships and romantic relationships, these people crave acceptance. All right. And they tend to be very obsessive. And I want you to think about anybody, if you have any friends that sort of, show some of these signs. Um, they have a deep need for reciprocation. What does that mean? That they have a deep need for reciprocation? Sort of acceptance, but yes, like they need whatever, like, and a lot of times, like people like this are going, or probably a lot of times are very needy and very jealous. And like they want the other person to show that same thing. Like they want the other person to be jealous of them if like they're talking to another guy, or they want that person to like need to be like texting with them constantly. Um, they're also very suspicious of rejection. They always think somebody's going to break up with them, which a lot of times, and then it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. Because has anybody ever dated somebody who always thought that like something was wrong, or that you were going to break up with them, or you were mad at them, or whatnot? Anybody ever dated? Sarah, you raising your hand? I can't. Yeah. All right. And then what ends up happening? You end up breaking up with them because you're like, this is annoying shit. Yeah. It's a self fulfilling prophecy. Um, they dumped you. Okay, yeah. I guess were you the one doing that? Um, oh no. Oh, okay. You weren't they actually ended up dumping you thinking that you were going to break up with them. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, with insecure avoidant, oh, she got scared. Okay. Yeah. Insecure avoidant, they are uncomfortable getting close to other people. They have a what's called a fear of intimacy. Um, at its extreme with these, and these two can go hand in hand. Like it's not just one or the other. Like a lot of times, people with insecure are both anxious and avoidant. But at its extreme, this manifests as what is called borderline personality disorder, which is people with BPD basically have all of these things. They crave acceptance and attention, but they are always afraid people are going to leave them, and a lot of times they fear getting close to other people. We'll talk about that later on when we get to mental disorders. BPD is the most common personality disorder. All right. Are there any questions about that? All right. So another quick video. So what happens without any attachment? What happens if we have nothing at a young age? Well, unfortunately, Arlo studied that as well. And so you will see that here. All right, so there you see, guys, that lack of affection at a young age can affect you for the rest, can lead to what's called an attachment disorder. Right? You see, those monkeys have no sense of attachment. Um, if you're interested in this more, this is a really famous 2020 in 1990 when the Soviet Union fell. And so in the 70s and 80s, Romania had a dictator named Nicolae Ceausescu. And the Romanian policy was all Romanians had to have two children. right? Because they wanted to up their population for workers. The problem was they were really poor, and so a lot of them had to put one of their kids up for into an orphanage. And when all these these humanitarian organizations came in after the fall of Ceausescu, they found these orphanages that were unbelievably overcrowded, with sometimes 3, 4, 5 kids living in a crib together. Um, and these kids had never had any affection at all. And they show that same sort of that rocking behavior, what he called autistic behavior, is also a self-soothing behavior. They show that same stuff. And a lot of times these orphans were adopted by families in the West, like American families, and they ended up having a lot of issues with these kids because some were 13, 14 years old and had never been touched before by anybody. So if you're interested in it, it's depressing, but it's a good documentary. All right, last thing. We're gonna go over synchronous a little bit, but like I said, asynchronous will take you like 3 minutes to do. All right, so finally, we're gonna talk about parenting styles. And I think this is always interesting. So what I want you to do real quick, and you can just put it in the chat, and you can send it to me privately. I want you to think about your parents or one of your parents. And I want you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 on warmth and control, with 10 being they are extremely warm, meaning they're very comforting, 1 being they are not comforting at all, and then 10 on control being they are a dictator, 1 being they show no control at all. So just put it in the chat with like warmth on like as like coordinates. So like warmth would be it'd be like X, Y, X and Y. Okay, so go ahead and do that real quick. I just like to see it, and I think it gives you a better sense of this when we're talking about it. All right, so what I'm seeing is pretty much most people are within the same range, which is what we expect. I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay. All right. So, most people's fell within the, 6 to 9 range on warmth and within the about 4 to 8 range on control, which is about where my parents would fall as well. The reason I ask that is because with these parenting styles, all right, parenting styles are kind of based on those 2 factors. So, not only is there the level of attachment that can affect us, but there's also the parenting style. These have been studied by a woman named Diana Baumrind. There are 4 of them. Authoritarian parents. Authoritarian sounds like what? Super controlling. Sounds like totalitarian, like Adolf Hitler, right? Totalitarian dictator. Authoritarian parents, the main thing with authoritarian parents is that they expect obedience from children. Um, they are very, very big with rules. Um, they also they expect the child to just do whatever they say, right? And if a kid asks them why they have to do something, what is an authoritarian type parent going to say? Because I said so. All right. Okay. I'm an adult and I don't need a reason. Yeah. That is not a good excuse for anything. Okay. All right. Because I said so. These are like the my way or the highway. You know, you can get on board or get out. Um, One of the other big things with these parents is a lot of times the punishment doesn't match the crime. And I would write it, the writing on this is not really working that well right now. Punishment doesn't match the crime. So like you do, like you forget to do the dishes one night and they ground you for like 2 months. Okay. Anybody have parents that do this? Now I meant to ask, do we think that is there a cultural difference in terms of parenting styles? Like, do different cultures display different parenting styles? What do we think? Yeah. Okay. Like what? What might be? Oh, hmm. Okay. All right. Any other cultural? I mean, I hear consistently from students with this question is which cultures have the maybe the stricter parents? Nobody. I've generally heard consistently that Asian parents are stricter than like white American parents, but maybe not. And it's certainly probably not across the board. Other countries value education and higher grades. Okay, yeah. All right. So a lot of times these parents justify this by being. They say that they're being overprotective because they want to protect the child from from bad things in the world. But in fact, they're just being very controlling. Okay, well, I said, this one person said that they hear that Black and Latino parents tend to be more strict and have harsher punishments. They, I think it very much. I mean, it depends on a lot of different factors. But I've heard that before as well. A lot of times, had African American students say that their parents were like very strict and had like different punishments. Um, so what they have found, guys, is a correlation between parenting styles and what the child is like. With authoritarian parenting, they found that children of authoritarian parents tend to have poor reasoning skills. Why might children of authoritarian parents have poor reasoning skills? Yeah. Okay. They're never given a choice. They're never able to figure out something on their own. So they tend to have poor reasoning skills. Um, and a lot of times they also tend to be immature, right? Because of the overprotectiveness, they're not like able, they tend to be like very like sheltered. And so that causes them to be it. Now, not always, okay, not always, but sometimes. All right. Permissive parents are the opposite. Permissive parents are parents that permit everything. Okay. Parents that there are no rules or there are rules, but there's no punishment for breaking the rule. Like the parents impose rules, but they don't do anything if you don't follow them. Whereas authoritarian parents tend to have high control, medium to low warmth, right? These parents have high warmth, but low control. They tend to be very loving, but it's more so out of a lot of times these permissive parents are afraid that the child is going to reject them. And so to counteract it, they want to be like as cool to the kid as possible. These are the parents that like, everybody knows somebody who has parents like this, who like they have like the cool parents, the parents that are like, all right, we'll buy you and your friends a keg just as long as everybody stays here, nobody can drive, like blah blah blah. All right, they want to be cool. A lot of times just this like it seems cool from like the outside, but a lot of times kids of these types of parents want more structure because kids need structure. What they have found is that kids of these types of parents tend to be very demanding because they always get what they want, and they react poorly to authority. Because they don't have any authority at home. So why would they react well to authority at school or anywhere else? All right, questions there about permissive parenting. You maybe could think of these in terms of like teachers. Does anybody have a teacher that's permissive that just like lets everybody get away with anything? I guess it's hard to tell right now. Negligent parents are parents that just don't do anything. Okay, these are parents that they are, where do you think they fall on those scales? Yeah, they are low on both. What happens when a kid has a mix of two different parenting styles? Um, well, usually a lot of times that happens with like the first kid, where like I know my dad was like more authoritarian when I was younger, and my mom was the more authoritative one. And so a lot of times when kids have two different types, they'll play the parents off of each other. But what they see is that parents generally, after a while, both end up falling kind of in the middle. Like they kind of meet in the middle. Negligent parents are parents that they just don't do anything. They don't care. They don't want a relationship with the kid. And so the kid just, they aren't loving and they aren't controlling. Unsurprisingly, these types of kids, the effect that this has on kids is not good. And these kids with these types of parents tend to have poor social and academic skills. And all these competencies are on the last slide as well. And then lastly, we have what are called authoritative parents, which are what most of our parents are. If your parent falls in the medium control and then medium to high warmth, that's authoritative. The big thing with this parenting style, and they have found that this is by far the most effective parenting style, is that these parents are demanding, meaning they have high expectations, but they are also very understanding. And one of the big hallmarks of this is they are open to discussion. They are willing to discuss things with the kids, just particularly like rules. So if a kid thinks something is unfair, and it'd be like, hey, like, my curfew's 10 o'clock, all my friends' curfew's 11 o'clock, the parents will sit down and say, all right, well, let's talk about this. Let's see if we can come to a consensus on this, right? Which teaches kids how to talk through issues. It also teaches kids that it's okay to question authority at times, because it is okay to question authority. Unsurprisingly, they found that the kids of these types of parents tend to be high achievers. Tend to be, not always. And parents switch between parenting styles as time goes. Yes, and parents can switch between parenting styles depending on the child. Some of you are probably easy kids, and so your parents can be more authoritative. Some of you are probably pains in the asses, and so your parents have to be maybe more authoritarian. So yeah. Okay. All right. So these one kids of these type tend to be more high achievers. All right. Are there any questions about any of those? I was like talking about it's more interesting when I'm in class because I get like input from students, but here are the what are called competencies. But again, remember, correlation does not indicate causation. One thing that they found is that like parents, like when a parent is competent, there is a genetic component that makes the child more competent as well, which makes sense.